The Celtics this year make my goddamn head hurt. How's that for an intro? This team is basically completely broken. I have tried over and over and over again to try and figure out all the issues with this Celtics team, and every time one issue pops up and then kind of fades away, another one pops up to make that problem not even seem like it was all that significant. As one issue becomes less severe, another just explodes. This has been incredibly frustrating to me, and I am not a Celtics fan. So that should say enough as it is. So in today's video, I'm going to attempt to sort out what the fuck is going wrong with the Celtics this year. There's so many things to talk about, so I'm just going to talk a lot about a bunch of random bullshit, because that's what's going on with the Celtics right now. Before I continue on with this video, about half of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed, so if you fall into that 50%, then subscribe. Also drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second and it makes a massive difference. The first and rather clear thing that exists with the Celtics this year, that seems to be a rather large one, is that the defensive identity has pretty much completely disappeared from this team. Last year, the Boston Celtics were 4th in defensive rating. This year, they have plummeted all the way to 22nd. Marcus Smart is a huge part of this. He has missed a little over half of the season, and with him being the defensive and hustle guy that he is, and with him having the impact that he does, go check out my deep dive on that, it definitely makes it difficult for the Celtics, but regardless, they have the defensive personnel to still be good on that end, and they have been dog shit. Their offense, while it is one of the top 5 offenses in the league, still does not have the cohesiveness to it that you would like. Jaylen Brown, ever since he has broken out into the player that he has become this year, kind of works in the same areas that Jayson Tatum does. He likes a lot of mid-range pull-ups, he likes to attack on certain corners of the perimeter, things like that. It's basically, they are kind of similar offensive players at this point. They like to attack in similar ways, and they also don't really play off of each other all that well outside of just being spot-up three-point shooters for the other player. So rather than having some this player bounces well off of this player type situation, it's more this player's doing this while this player looks at him. And with Kemba Walker, who we will talk about in a second, not being much of a playmaker as a point guard and more so a scorer, he's not really mitigating that issue at all. There is just in general a playmaking issue with this Celtics team that prevents them from really playing together as a team. Their general manager, Danny Ainge, is way too fucking passive, and I'm also going to talk about Brad Stevens here. I just want to pat myself on the back for a second here. I was goddamn right about the both of them. I made videos a while ago about why Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens are both overrated, and I was completely right. And I got yelled at like crazy for making those videos in the past, but I was right. I was absolutely fucking right. Danny Ainge is so goddamn passive. Like, I understand that Evan Fournier is good, but you use your trade exception on a guy on a 1-year deal. You see how many players leave your team, which is a whole nother damn thing. Signing Kemba Walker to a max contract extension because you didn't believe enough in Jaylen and Jayson, and then not using that to sign depth, so now the team has no goddamn depth. Drafting players who can be impact now like Desmond Bane and then trading them away for nothing. Even just drafting poorly in general. What the fuck has Romeo Langford done in the past forever? Like, Danny Ainge has genuinely had a bad streak ever since that offseason where he put together basically the core of the team with drafting Tatum, signing Hayward, trading for Kyrie. Ever since that offseason, he has been a negative as a GM. Brad Stevens is a good coach. He is not, however, an amazing one. And I said that back then, and I'm right about it right now. Because while Brad does not do anything that outright makes the issues with this team worse, and doesn't really do anything dumb, he is also not doing things that you would want a great coach to do to elevate said team. He is probably like the 7th best coach in the NBA, which is still someone that I would not fire, and I don't think firing Brad Stevens is the solution whatsoever, but but the fact that this guy gets absolutely no heat whatsoever and also really is not fixing the problems with this team is problematic. I heard someone on Twitter once say that like no other coach would survive 2019 that the Celtics had, or at the very least make it out with almost zero criticism, and Brad Stevens has somehow managed to do that. Kemba. Holy shit, has he been bad this year. Now, he has had good games here or there, but for the most part, the biggest issue with Kemba has been inconsistency and inefficiency. He just simply does not have it like he used to as a scorer. And the thing about that is, when Kemba Walker is not scoring, he is not providing you a whole lot of value because he is a piss-poor defensive player, he's a mediocre playmaker as a guard, and he's a good floor spacer, I suppose, even though he's inconsistent with that too. Really, Kemba is bringing almost no value to the Celtics when he's not making shots, and he is not making shots more often than not. Depth, I mentioned that earlier with Danny Ainge. This team does not have shit for depth. I don't even think I really need to dive into that one. Like, Evan Fournier being traded for is going to make a difference, but it's not going to outright fix the fact that outside of your starting five, you're not bringing much to the table. The biggest issue, though, by far, the one that I can point to as the clearest reason why they have been so disappointing, is this team's tendency to basically fall asleep at the wheel for long stretches of time. Brad Stevens recently said that the Celtics had developed a reputation in the league for falling asleep for about 10 to 12 minutes in pretty much every game. 10 to 12 minutes, as in, like, a quarter of the game, they're spending not really caring. And this issue, I think, is an extension from the team's best player, which I still think that's Jayson Tatum, by the way, though it's definitely up for debate. Jayson, my biggest criticism for him ever since he broke out to be a star caliber player was that he has a tendency to just kind of float, to not really be all that engaged for certain stretches of the game, to just kind of be out there doing cardio, spotting up. That's pretty much it, when he should be in a position to be taking over games or asserting himself in some way or another. He even might be scoring, but he still does not seem to be engaged. It's almost like you're in class listening to the lesson, but are you really? Your head's in a different spot. You're reading a book, but you're not comprehending the words because you're focused on something else, and you realize I've just read through 4 pages and I don't even know what the hell it said. Basically, the basketball version of that is what Jayson Tatum has done for the past like 2 seasons, and now it's what the Celtics in whole are doing, which is far worse. This team has long stretches where it doesn't seem like they care, like they're not engaged with the result of the game. And while this might be able to work against the worst teams in the league, I mean, they just beat the Rockets the other day, you can't do that against the best teams in the league, because the best teams in the league are going to look at that and they are going to smell blood. These Celtics have had a comical amount of big leads this season that they have blown. A comical amount. I am actually following a lot of Celtics fans on Twitter, and it's hilarious that every game they go up big, they're like, all right, can't wait to see how we blow this one. I'll say as a Bulls fan, that's rather relatable, but like it's even worse for them because at least the Celtics have expectations. And that blowing leads thing completely stems from the fact that the team just falls asleep. They get a big lead and then they get complacent. They don't really try for 10 minutes, and then suddenly the game is tied and oh shit, we have to figure this one out. And half of the time they don't. What makes this most frustrating above all is the fact that individual players on this team have actually been having some of the best seasons of their career. Tatum has stepped up a little bit in the playmaking department and his scoring has gotten a little bit better. Jaylen Brown has been better this year than I thought he would ever be. So that's awesome. And then Robert Williams lately has really been breaking out and become the clear-cut starting center. He's even had games where he has high assists, like he has playmaking chops. Like, he just seems like he's just awesome now. And that's happening. And Peyton Pritchard ends up being a surprise off of the bench, things like that. And the team still sucks ass. Obviously, Kemba being worse this year is a big thing. But for the most part, the roster's actual talent, I would say, has improved outside of obviously losing Gordon Hayward. But like for the individual players, it's gotten better. But it really hasn't, because they don't actually work together. Players are getting better, but because Jaylen and Jayson don't actually play off of each other all that particularly well, because they don't have all that great of playmaking, because they have the poor consistency, because they fall out of games, that doesn't actually end up mattering because all of those factors hold it back. I have wanted to make a video on the Celtics for so long this season, but almost always something comes up and I don't know what to blame and who to point fingers at. At this point, I'm pointing fingers at anybody except for Jaylen Brown and Robert Williams. Like, there's some serious problems here. Danny Ainge needs to address this in the offseason. He cannot be complacent for long, because all these problems are only going to get worse if left unchecked. And Brad Stevens deserves more criticism than he gets, and they gotta stop this complacent, not caring for 10 minutes bullshit, because it's going to hold them back from being even a good team. They could be a great team, but now they're not even a decent team. And that's a problem. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video. That is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.